Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that every dollar, every rupee, every euro, and every number in your bank account had disappeared. No cash, no cards, no online payments. How would you buy breakfast? It sounds impossible. But for most of human history, money didn't exist at all. So how did humans trade before coins, paper bills, and digital wallets? And how did a simple idea become one of the most powerful inventions in history? The story of money isn't really about coins or paper. It's about trust. And once you understand that, you'll never look at your wallet the same way again. Let's go back nearly 10,000 years. Early humans lived in small farming villages. People grew crops, raised animals, made tools, and crafted clothing. Whenever someone needed something they couldn't produce themselves, they traded with someone else. This system is called barter. If you had extra wheat and your neighbor had chickens, you could exchange one for the other. Simple enough. But here's where it gets interesting. Barter only works when both people want what the other person has at exactly the same time. Economists call this the double coincidence of wants. Imagine you're a fisherman who wants a new axe. You find a blacksmith, but the blacksmith doesn't want fish. He wants grain. Now you have a problem. You first need to find a farmer willing to trade grain for fish. Then you take the grain back to the blacksmith to finally get your axe. One simple purchase suddenly becomes a long chain of trades. As communities grew larger, this became incredibly inefficient. People needed something that everyone would accept. But what? Different cultures came up with different answers. Some used salt, others traded cattle. In parts of Africa, iron bars became valuable. In the Pacific Islands, enormous stone discs represented wealth. And in many coastal societies, beautiful seashells became a common form of payment. Why shells? They were durable, easy to recognize, difficult to fake, and not available everywhere. Most importantly, people agreed they had value. That agreement changed everything. But here's the surprising part. The shells themselves weren't actually valuable. You couldn't eat them. You couldn't use them to build a house. Their power came from one thing: belief. If everyone believed a shell could buy food tomorrow, then the shell became money today. Without realizing it, humanity had discovered one of the greatest inventions in history: shared trust. But shells created new problems. Some were easy to collect. Others broke during travel. And carrying enough shells to buy expensive items could become exhausting. Civilizations needed something stronger, something rarer, something easier to transport. That's when humans turned their attention underground. Gold and silver had fascinated people for thousands of years. They didn't rust. They were beautiful, they were difficult to find, and they could be melted, divided, and reshaped without losing quality. These metals were almost perfect for trade, but there was still one major problem. How could anyone know if a piece of gold was real, or pure, or the right weight? Every trade required weighing the metal and checking its quality. Transactions were slow. Trust was still fragile. Then around 600 BC, in the ancient kingdom of Lydia, located in what is now Western Turkey, someone had a revolutionary idea. Instead of weighing gold every time, the government would create standardized pieces of metal. Each piece would have the same weight, the same purity, and an official stamp guaranteeing both. The world's first true coins were born. That tiny stamp solved one of history's biggest economic problems. People no longer had to trust the seller. They trusted the coin. And because they trusted the coin, trade became dramatically faster. Merchants traveled farther. Markets expanded. Cities grew richer. Trade routes connected distant civilizations. Coins spread from Lydia to Greece, from Greece to Rome, from Rome to much of the known world. Money was no longer just a tool for buying things. It was becoming the engine of civilization itself. But that's not the whole story. As trade exploded across continents, another problem appeared. Imagine carrying thousands of gold coins across mountains and deserts. They were heavy, easy to steal, and dangerous to transport. Merchants needed a safer solution. What happened next would completely change the future of money and eventually lead to the paper bills, bank accounts, and digital payments we use every single day. As trade continued to grow, merchants faced a dangerous problem. Carrying large amounts of gold across long distances became slow, risky, and expensive. Instead of carrying gold everywhere, merchants began leaving it with trusted goldsmiths. In return, they received a written receipt proving how much gold they owned. Soon people realized something remarkable. Instead of collecting the gold, they could simply trade the receipt itself. Those simple receipts eventually evolved into paper money. Once again, trust transformed the way humans traded. Banks soon became much more than storage vaults. They connected savers with borrowers, helping businesses grow and economies expand. Instead of sitting in vaults, money began circulating through the economy, funding farms, shops, factories, and new ideas. As trade spread around the world, paper money became the standard for global commerce. Eventually, coins were joined by paper money. Then came credit cards. Today, much of our money exists only as numbers stored inside computers. Today, billions of dollars move across the planet every second without a single coin or paper bill changing hands. But despite thousands of years of innovation, one thing has never changed. Money only works because people believe it does. From simple barter to invisible digital payments, money has continuously evolved to solve one problem: making trade easier. The story of money isn't really the story of coins, paper, or digital payments. It's the story of trust.
Money
Every
has
civilization,
changed.
every economy, and every
Trust
financial system
hasn't.
has depended on one simple idea. People believe that what they hold today will still have value tomorrow. The next time you open your wallet or tap your phone to pay, remember that you're using one of humanity's greatest inventions, built not on gold, but on trust. Gold coins had transformed the ancient world. They made trade faster, easier, and more reliable. But as kingdoms became empires and trade stretched across continents, carrying large amounts of gold became a serious problem. Imagine you're a merchant traveling hundreds of miles with a chest full of coins. Every mile is dangerous. Bandits could attack, ships could sink, and even if nothing went wrong, the weight alone made travel slow and expensive. People needed a better way. The surprising part is that the next big leap in money wasn't made with more gold. It was made with paper. Around 1,000 years ago, merchants in China faced the same problem as traders everywhere else. Instead of carrying heavy coins, they began leaving them with trusted merchants or warehouses. In return, they received a written receipt. That receipt promised they could collect their coins whenever they wanted. At first, the paper wasn't money. It was simply proof that money existed somewhere else. But something unexpected happened. People realized they didn't actually need to collect the coins. Instead, they could hand the receipt to someone else as payment. If everyone trusted the paper, there was no reason to move the gold at all. For the first time, money became lighter than the metal it represented, and that changed everything. Eventually, governments saw the potential. Instead of merchants issuing paper receipts, the state began printing official paper money backed by precious metals. Paper was easier to carry, cheaper to produce, and far more practical than bags of heavy coins. Trade expanded even faster. But here's where it gets interesting. If people trusted paper because it represented gold, where should all that gold be stored? This question gave rise to one of history's most important institutions: banks. Originally, banks were simply secure places to store valuables. People deposited gold and received certificates showing how much they owned. Over time, something fascinating happened. Bankers noticed that almost nobody withdrew all their gold at the same time. Most of it just sat in storage, so they asked a simple question: why let all this gold sit unused? Instead, they began lending some of it to other people. A farmer could borrow money to buy land. A merchant could borrow money to purchase more goods. A builder could borrow money to construct new homes. The borrower promised to repay the money later with extra money called interest. That extra payment became the bank's profit. Suddenly, money wasn't just something you spent. It became something that could create even more money. Loans helped businesses grow. Businesses created jobs. Workers earned wages, and entire economies began expanding faster than ever before. But there was a catch. Banks were lending money that wasn't entirely theirs. As long as only a few customers wanted their deposits back each day, everything worked smoothly. But if everyone demanded their money at once, the bank simply wouldn't have enough cash. This is known as a bank run. History is filled with moments when fear spread faster than facts. One person rushed to withdraw their savings, then another, then thousands. Even healthy banks could collapse simply because people lost confidence. The surprising lesson? Money depends as much on trust as it does on numbers. Without trust, even a vault full of gold isn't enough. As economies grew, businesses faced another challenge. Starting a large company required enormous amounts of money. Building ships, opening factories, constructing railroads. No single person could afford these massive projects alone. So people invented a brilliant solution. Ownership could be divided into tiny pieces. Instead of one person owning an entire business, thousands of people could each own a small share. These shares became known as stocks. If the company succeeded, the value of those shares increased. If the company failed, investors could lose money. Risk and reward could now be shared by many people instead of one. This idea changed the world. Huge projects that once seemed impossible suddenly became achievable. Railroads connected countries. Factories fueled the Industrial Revolution. Global trade exploded. Money was no longer just moving between people. It was building the modern world. But rapid growth also created new problems. Banks sometimes made risky loans. Companies sometimes failed. Markets sometimes crashed. When panic spread, entire economies could suffer. Governments realized that someone needed to help keep the financial system stable. This led to the creation of central banks. Unlike ordinary banks, central banks don't serve everyday customers. Instead, they oversee the nation's money supply. They help stabilize the banking system. They influence interest rates. And during financial crises, they can provide emergency support to banks.